That's what some people think. Well, Vancouver's gotta be shit.
Yeah.
No, it's already popular. Well, it's not popular because it's shit.
You ever cake yourself by mistake?
No. I can listen back to the show anytime I want. But I had to deal with that ignorance for years. People just like, if it comes to Vancouver, it can't be any good.
Good. Yeah, am I just supposed to hear the music?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cowtown, Alberta. Hey, we are here. Welcome everybody, Metis Matters Radio, CFRO 100.5FM. I'm your host, Derrick Whiteskycloud, and yes, we are here live in the beautiful downtown Co-op Radio here in Vancouver. And it's sort of like dreary outside, kind of like we had sort of rain last night, and now it's kind of like, okay, I can only handle so much of this rain. We've been dealing with it for such a long time. And cold, baby, it's cold outside. What can I say?
Were they trying to say that was like a rape anthem at one point?
Yeah.
Like, don't we have other stuff to talk about? That's a little more important. Like what's happening to our own country and the world.
I know.
And the military-industrial complex and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
and blaming Russia for everything.
Yeah. We'll blame Russia for all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Stuff they didn't even do.
Maybe Russia actually messed with the SNC.
Oh, maybe he did. Yeah, it's all Russia's
fault.
It's
their fault, yeah. And we'll blame them too. Jeez. Maybe they kicked out Jody that way.
Oh, yeah, Russia did that too.
Yeah, Russia did that. Well, actually, in a way, we're talking about, well, welcome everybody in the chat room, Facebook chat room here too, but I got a great guest here. This guy traveled all the way down from Ontario, but not to see me. He moved here. So he's going to be joining us in a few minutes, but what we're going to be talking about is, we've got a couple of little stories today, been informed on the news that, let's put it this way, the MNC, Mr. Clem Charchet, yeah, he opened his big mouth again. Yeah, and he basically supports Mr. Trudeau's, the SNC Lavalin, basically, well, I guess say, Jody Wilson-Raybould and Phil Pott were actually removed from caucus in the Liberal caucus. So basically now, and so when they asked Clem Charchet his opinion about it, he said, I agree with what Mr. Trudeau does. And I'm thinking, okay, $1 billion, I'm not going to argue. That's what he wants. So, yeah, he's, the guy could have said no comment, because the AFN said no comment. They're not going to say anything, but he had opened his mouth. Well, anyways, now you know how faithful a Métis is in our Liberal government. But anyways, thought I'd share that with you, put a little bit of niche on the top of the story. Today also we have... every Wednesday at the Vancouver Friendship Center, we also have the Métis night. So if our good friend Bryce doesn't know about that, you can actually go down there. You can learn how to jig and dance. You can do all kinds of cool stuff down there.
Thank you. I'll have to do that.
Yeah. Take your wife down there because she's from Australia.
That's right. Teach her how to jig.
Teach her to jig, yeah.
But where I come from, jigging has two different meanings. We can jig for fish, or we can jig.
Well, you can stand outside and jig for fish and play the song.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Red River Jig.
Jig and jig.
Yeah, jig and jig.
The jig.
So yeah, we're going to be doing that. And also, if anybody wants to learn, you're more than welcome to come, folks. It's open. It's free from 5:30 to 7:30 over at the Vancouver Friendship Center. And those who don't know, please join us. But I want to share with everybody else out there the views expressed and opinions given by the individual host, which is myself, and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of CFRO 100.5 FM, your cooperative radio's network, and its affiliates and or sponsors. The reason why I say this every week is because it is my opinion. And it's anybody else that sits with me in the studio, it's our opinion, not the station's opinion. Okay? So we also had a little talk earlier. We've been hearing so many stories about people talking about, as far as Métis are concerned, should they be a chief? In Eastern Coast, a lot of people are actually claiming or have been given the right of the word chief when they're head of a group, Métis group, and then here in the western part of Canada, they're called presidents. And there's been so much debating consistently, who's right and who's wrong. Well, a friend of mine did some research and found out later that Gabriel Dumont actually was elected as a chief of the Métis, not a president. So that started from Gabriel Dumont during Riel's days. So if you guys thinking that's what's right or wrong, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But no further ado, I'm actually talk about this wonderful guy who's been coming, who's actually I asked to come down to be part of the studio, and this is going to be clearing a lot of the air, folks. So it's something that it needs to be talked about or had to be talked about. So it's wonderful to have someone here that's actually in the studio instead of just being on the phone. But his name is Bryce Fiquet, and he actually is the founder of the Métis Nation of Canada, now retired from there. He's handed it over to Carol Dumont. And so what she has done now, so basically we want to tell the story. So here's about who Bryce Fiquet is. He says he's the direct descendant of Louis the Eskimo, who lived the early 1800s. He was born in 1958 in the Old Bay, Quebec, Labrador, and was fortunate and grateful to celebrate his 60th last year. Now this guy is 60. He's a puppy. Okay. And his mom passed away. Before his mom passed away, he's lived here in Mission, here in British Columbia on the West Coast now for the last 3.5 years. Growing up in a remote and rather isolated area where there was no electricity, no running water, no services of any kind, he survived off the land and sea, hunting and fishing. With the invention of the skidoo, and as new services were made available to us, including telephone and television, our lives as hunters and gatherers began to change. Even so, living in such an isolated area, many of the young people were often farmed out to other regions to board with families so they could continue in their education. I was one of those kids, he says. I was given the opportunity to go to school in the States because I was very good at sports and won a scholarship to go to Bobby Orr's hockey school. However, it all changed when I lost my eye playing hockey. I ended up back in Old Fort Bay, started working, married, had a family, and moved to the city at various stages during my lifetime. I have ended up back in Old Fort Bay in 2009 and became the mayor of Bonne-Espérance, which expanded in 2010 to include being the warden of the MRC.
Du Golfe Saint-Laurent.
Okay.
C'est petit français maintenant.
So he speaks French.
Un peu.
Un peu. It was only a few years prior to this, our family discovered our indigenous roots and traced our family back to Louis the Eskimo. I became involved with the Quebec Métis Nation and embraced and my ancestry history. And in 2009, he founded the Métis Nation of Canada. His purpose was to establish the nationwide group that would include all Métis people from the Atlantic to the Pacific to the Arctic. In 2012, he stepped aside from running the Métis Nation of Canada due to very severe personal circumstances. Unfortunately, during the time of his absence, things were not handled in the most professional manner, and we all still dealing with the fallout to this day. At this point, let me just clarify, he says, that there have been rumors that the Métis Nation of Canada boasted 20,000 members. This was a fabrication of truth. Fabrication of truth, circulated by the past president. He came to the conclusion that the last 2015 that he needed to take back control of the Métis Nation of Canada and moved it forward in a position direct of light, integrity, and truth. In December of the last year, Métis Nation Canada united with CFMPC in what is beginning of an exciting new era of unity and the hope of all Métis people across Canada. Welcome, Mr. Whiteskycloud.
Thank you, Derrick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of history, my friend. Just
I do.
Here, yeah. So what I want to ask you is, you've been like I said, you've been hearing and seeing and all these videos. Everybody's trying to spread rumors about negativeness of it. Before we go into that part, let's talk about you and what made you decide to start this the Métis Nation of Canada.
Well, I guess it really goes back to my early beginnings as a child in discovering artifacts in our community, digging up arrowheads and many different types of artifacts of Indigenous people, and not really knowing the value of them at the time, and they've all disappeared and were given away. And then having gone to school in the States and coming back home, I got involved with the Métis Nation of Quebec. I first applied to, once I discovered that I had ancestry, Indigenous ancestry, I reached out to actually the Native Alliance of Quebec in Gatineau, but at the time I was living in Ontario and they referred me to OMA, which was the Ontario Métis Aboriginal Association, and Sault Ste. Marie, which I believe now is the Métis Nation of Ontario. So I got my first status card there. When I moved back to Quebec, of course, I was told that now that I'm in Quebec, I need to register in Quebec. And I had a choice of joining many organizations in Quebec. There were quite a few. Everybody was popping up out of the woodwork after 1982 Constitution. So I was put in contact with Mr. Claude Aubin and formed a relationship with him. And over a period of 3 to 4 years, I worked very closely with Mr. Aubin, bringing many people to the Quebec Métis Nation. And the reason I did that was I was very interested in being part of my province and being proud to be a Quebecer. I am a proud Quebecer, English at that. And but as I did more investigating into how the Métis National Council worked, how the Congress of Aboriginal People worked, I discovered that the Quebec Métis Nation had no national representation, and therefore they were not eligible for funding and couldn't get any help from the government. So what I decided to do, I said, maybe I could found the Métis Nation of Canada and thereby give the Quebec Métis Nation a national body to be like an umbrella. But Mr. Claude Aubin was quite upset with that idea, because he believed that the Quebec Métis Nation belonged with the MNC. But Clément Chartier refused to accept that Mr. Aubin. I think they go back a long ways, and I think there's some maybe childhood battles that have never been resolved.
Sounds like it.
Regardless, he never was. Mr. Aubin was never able to get Mr. or the other members of the MNC. I know he's close friends with Mr. Doucette out of Saskatchewan. So it went on for years. Eventually, through Mr. Aubin's encouragement, they barred me from the Quebec Métis Nation, and they took me off the board of directors representing my region. And I just said, so I said, you know what, it's not worth it. I'll just continue on with the Métis Nation of Canada. And I never really begged or tried to take any members from the Quebec Métis Nation. Many of my family members and all the people from our region, as far as I know, still belong to the Quebec Métis Nation. I founded the Métis Nation of Canada to be a national body, not necessarily to be a registry of people, but we had to register as members. And as it turned out, we started slowly getting people registering from all across Canada, and people just trickled in. And then, of course, as you said, I had a personal situation in 2012 with the loss of my brother and my cousin. Died from many different, my cousin died from cancer, my brother died from alcohol and drugs related. And I just had to step away. I went to Newfoundland. I worked for the Premier of Newfoundland. I'm a stonemason by trade. I've worked all across Canada, and I really enjoy this country. But most importantly, I love the people, and I love our Métis people. And I think that coming together now in unity with Carol and the CFMPC, I think we're going to do a lot of good for the Métis people that so far have not been on the government's radar, and I think that's about to change.
Well, and I really do feel, you got, you're you believe in your heart, which you've handed over to her, and then you believe the fact that she's going to do a wonderful job. Now, the length of time or amount of time that I've actually got to know Carol, she's really coming from the heart and trying to say, here's what really did happen. And even they also have a video of the presentation, folks, that Bryce had actually handed over the paddle to Carol. And Carol has decided to take on the responsibility, and she has that. She's done quite well with it.
Oh, absolutely. I think I always knew, as the founder of the Métis Nation of Canada, I would not necessarily be the leader of the organization. Really early on in 2010, I was trying to put together a board of directors, and Mr. David Bouchard, who many people know as an outstanding Métis citizen in Canada, and we spoke and we got together. I flew out here to Victoria and we did a ceremony and we made him the Prime Minister of the Métis Nation of Canada. And at the time, I think both of us thought, well, you know what, we're going to play on the same ballpark, same level as we are a nation. Canada's a nation. They have a prime minister. We're a nation. We can have a prime minister. But that's all changed now.
Yeah, I did see that video.
We've all moved on.
It sort of surprised me when I seen that because I recognized one of the veterans there.
Yes.
I was going like, what's a First Nations guy doing there? But.
Yeah. Well, I think we all went through the growing pains, and I think lately we've since Carol has came on, I think there's been many attacks at her, which are just totally disgusting and I just don't know. I don't have any good words to say about the people that say those things about her. I refuse to allow those people into my space. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything positive or good about them. But I think going forward, I will work very closely with Carol and do all I can as the founder. I'm now registered as the federal lobbyist for the Métis Nation of Canada. I'm looking forward to using that role to help our people.
What are your thoughts of David Fife's work? I'm not sure if you know of him that well, or if you know of David's work. Or sorry, Charlie Fife.
Yes.
Sorry, not David Fife. I got a friend of mine, David Fife, here in Vancouver. Charlie Fife.
No, I don't know Charlie very much at all, actually. But I know if he has the heart, like most of us do. We're very passionate people, us Métis people. We're very independent. We're strong-minded, and we don't always agree, and we see things differently. And sometimes we just do that. We want to be heard. We want to be listened to, and I think everybody has a voice, and everybody's entitled to be listened to. And I wish everybody well. I think by working together, we don't have to belong to the same organizations necessarily, but I think it's important that we work together on the same values and the same concerns that all of us have.
There have been a lot of, I guess to say, everyone's trying to create an infight amongst each other. Do you feel yourself that the MNC actually was the major cause of this continuous breakup of our communities?
I can't say yes or no. I don't like to think bad of people or groups, but somebody's doing something and making something move in different directions. Way back in the very beginning, when I received my letters patent for the Métis Nation of Canada from Incorporations Canada in 2009, the very first thing I did was I brought them over to the MNC on Spark Street at the time when they were in their big lofty offices, and I presented that document to Mr. Clement Chartier, and I said, please take it and include all Métis people. And I still haven't heard from him. That's 10 years ago?
Wow. What does that tell you, folks? Wow. Sometimes I know there's people out there that like to keep a firm. They don't want to change, and I understand the fact that I know Clem Chartier himself, and then because I'm not saying himself alone, but the MNC is focusing specifically Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. I know it is, but they're actually just following. They're thinking that's the only group of Métis in the community, and no one else from the eastern coast or the west coast. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, does he have that right to think that way? Your thoughts? Do you think that all the West and the East should be all part of this? Because then the East Coast started from the very beginning, way before Winnipeg.
Oh, absolutely. The first Métis people were probably Newfoundland, Labrador, with the Vikings, if you want to go back that far, pre-Europeans. But after the Europeans came to the fishery, the east coast of Canada was very rich in the cod fishery. And then when they discovered that the lower North Shore, where I come from, in that part of Quebec, was very rich in fur. My dad was a trapper. I think, wow, Métis people are all across Canada. And they're all the same. We're all human beings born free and equal in dignity and rights. We all the same people. You can't differentiate people because you're from the Red River or you're from Ontario or British Columbia or even New Brunswick or Nova Scotia. We're all human beings. We all have the same rights and we're entitled to the same benefits.
Yeah, because everybody, there are people right now that actually have discussed this. I've heard this last 2-3 days. They're talking about blood quantum. They're thinking about taking that same idea from the U.S. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a colonial thing. I think the colonial governments have always been hell-bent on assimilating people, taking away as much of their rights as they possibly can, take their land, take their resources, and put them out on the street, basically.
Yeah, it is sick. So we're going to be, knowingly that Bryce has been busy up here in this area, and I know very well that him and I just met just for the first time because Carol DeMont actually said to me, you got to get a hold of Bryce because here's a guy that knows this stuff, and that he's actually the original founder of the organization. So I wanted to have Bryce in here because basically, yes, we do have our phone lines because we have a lot of people that call from Ontario, but when I heard that Bryce was living here in Mission, and he's not too far from where I live, and so it was wonderful to have, knowing that he's here in the studio, because I'm hearing the true factual stories. This man's in the studio to prove the fact that he's here, right? And the thing is that we can always keep on talking about money, and that's not what we're going to be talking about all tonight, because what I want to talk about is history. Now, did your family ever get involved in any of the Métis gatherings, like, any community work in your area, like pioneering type of?
Well, back home, like, we had our own traditions. Like, I grew up, my dad had a dog team. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have phone services, none of this stuff. So we grew up small little houses, shanty houses. Mm-hmm. Our grandparents usually had the bigger houses, but. And we just grew up very isolated. Like, we didn't, there are no roads. There's some places still back home, there's still no roads. So we developed a lifestyle that was very dependent on the land, hunting and fishing. And so we grew up in that way. The gatherings in the community were usually a wedding or a funeral. The funerals were, pretty sad many times, I remember. But the weddings always ended up in a big drunk and a big fight between different clans in the community. So I guess if you want to talk about, where the gatherings, yeah, there was a couple families that didn't like each other, like the Hadfields and McCoys, and a wedding was always a good occasion to have a fight, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. My dog's bigger than your dog.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's normal. No matter where you go, folks. Now, also, too, that what I'm going to find out, like, what was he trapping mostly in the area? Was it small animals, mostly big animals?
No, mostly I would say small. Like, there was mostly fox, beaver, muskrat, mink, otter, marten. Of course, then the food ones, we ate a lot of rabbit and partridge and stuff like that.
Did he teach you how to do all that too?
No, unfortunately, I never got to share that experience with my dad. My two brothers did. I had an accident in my eye when I was 5 years old. I had a fork. There was a little incident at the dinner table, and I had a fork stuck in my eye. Ooh. So that sent me out to Quebec City. I lived in an orphanage in Quebec City for 3 years. I went through the ordeal that many young people go through when you get put in those institutions. I was abused sexually and physically. And and then after I went back home, grade 7, grade 8, I went to Bobby Orzaki School, and then from there I went to school in the States. So I never really spent a lot of time in my life. I spent more time, I think, away, than I did at home. So I never really got to participate in the hunting. The only time I remember I went with my dad, begging him when I was about 8 years old to let me shoot the gun. And he put a big purple blue Imperial shot in a shotgun and gave it to me and blew me off my legs. I never went hunting after.
Now, that was after you lost your eye?
Yeah.
Oh, well, how old were you then?
When that happened?
Yeah.
I think it was about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
He showed me what to do. He said, put it to your shoulder and hold it real tight.
Yeah.
And I did, but it still knocked me on my ass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does. No matter how heavy. No, I've seen big people actually get knocked off their butt. So yeah, because my mom had a shotgun.
Right.
And hers was for defense and protection of the land. We had a young kid that was quite an abuser. He hated us, like it was a racist thing. Where I lived on the farm, and he showed up in his car, big mag wheels, and he was gonna tear donuts all over rip up our front yard, and thinking he got away with it. And my wife came out with a shotgun and shot his tires. And the cops showed up about an hour later, and they didn't even arrest my mom. They just asked her what happened. They saw the car still in the middle of the road, like in the middle of the grass, and the guy ran out of the car, and he went to call the farmer to get the farmer to phone the cops. So he phoned the cops. The guy never came back, but the cops showed up, 2 cop cars, no lights, nothing flashing. Came in there and asked my mom, like, okay, what happened? So my mom said, well, what? He goes, like, what happened? Well, he was threatening us, and he did this, and he figured he could do whatever he wanted. So I warned him, and she wouldn't listen. So I shot his tires, and my mom, and the cop said to my mom, next time shoot to kill. The cops told us to my mom, next time shoot to kill. So, but she didn't have no trespassing sign on the front yard, so she did. Like next time around, that was good. But that's what happens, guys. You just have to protect your land sometimes. That's
right. I think Indigenous people are starting to think that way about all of Canada because the colonial government don't own the land. It's not owned by the monarchy. I think my personal opinion is that someday we need to have a new constitution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see if Diane sent us a message. Yeah, she's at home. So we're going to take a break, folks. We're going to actually play a song with you. We're going to play Big John McNeil of Dallas Warrior. And there we go.
I don't think it's plugged in.
Yeah, it's plugged in now. Let's see.
I want to turn it up a bit.
I got to blink. There we go. CFRO 100.5 FM. This is Carol's number when I have her. If we get you to call her. Okay.
This Carol? This name matters. Hold on here. Maybe matters in the days of playing this song.
What's this guitar doing in here? She must be fiddle and drums.
Hey, he promoted Dallas Warrior a long time ago.
I remember when he first played.
It's drums. It's guitar.
I know. Ken was quite the guy. He says drums and guitar never existed with Metis. Well, yes, they did. Yeah. Not from the drum, the hand drum maybe, but.
Bill calls themselves Metis and they're beating on a drum. What the hell is that?
You asked me a question now that I remember. At the weddings, it was all fiddle playing. That was my uncles were all fiddle players, and so we did step dancing like crazy. And it was like we could slap our feet the hardest on the floor and make the most noise, right?
We used to call clogging.
Yeah.
How to punish a Métis? Tie his or her feet together.
Good one.
CFRO 100.5 FM. Yes, you are here. Co-op Radio, beautiful downtown Vancouver. My guest today is Bryce Fiquette, and he actually is living here in the Mission, BC region. And did we ever get a hold of, is Carol around there?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, we got her. We're going to have Carol Dumont call in, or she's going to be, she'd be coming in.
She's waiting to talk, actually.
Yeah, she can hardly wait. Her feet are just kicking it up a notch. I got it. Someone sent us a joke in the Facebook chat room, folks. I'm going to make a big shout out here for Jermaine. She says, "How do you punish a Métis? Tie his or her feet together." That means you can't jig. So, Carol, are you there, my friend?
I'm here. Finally made it home.
You did.
Yeah, for 2 days.
How's the weather where you are?
Oh, snow.
Lots of snow?
No, it's starting to melt, though.
Okay. You're starting to melt, or the snow starting to melt?
The snow.
Okay. So, we got our good friend Bryce here. And,
Hey, Bryce.
Hi, Carol.
So, can you let us, if you want to share with us, how you met Bryce?
Oh, we met quite a while ago, actually, and way back. I think the first time that we met face-to-face was actually at INAC, if I remember well, Bryce.
Yes, you're correct, Carol.
Yeah, it was at INAC, and they were there I was working at INAC at the time, and yeah, that's when we first met.
It's pretty unique because I remember seeing this lady walk by with this nice tan jacket on and frills and everything, and I don't know how we said hi, but we did say hi. And it was the same time as I was in Ottawa giving the Métis Nation of Canada over to Edgar. And we know what bad things came from that. It wasn't a good situation, but I think maybe life brings things around for a reason. And here we are with a most remarkable lady in Carol, and I have all the confidence in the world that we're going great places and going forward in a real positive manner.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we're on the right path.
So, Carol, have you seen a lot of the new things happening out in the community lately, and what are your thoughts on what's going on since the changes have been taking place this last few months?
It's mind-blowing, actually, and you need to catch your breath. It seems I'm spending more and more time on Facebook watching the news than watching them on TV. But at the same time, I'm worried. I worry about what's happening to our nation from coast to coast, all the attacks, fighting, and people resigning, and some people not digging their feet in and saying, no, this is the way we're going, and they're not listening to the people. So I don't know.
Do you think it could be the cause of Facebook that makes people break it up, or do you think it's just people like to create infighting amongst each other, or do you think it's the pressure from the MNC?
I think it's both. It's all three of them. It's a combination. What I find sad about the Facebook and online, which could be a very great tool to unite, and for us it was a really great tool to unite until we let somebody in, and it went to hell from there, and I mean hell. And at the same time, people get online and they think that they can say and do anything, and it's almost like they're looking at the screen and they're not realizing that all those attacks and all that infighting that they're creating and turning friends against friends and family against family is happening in real life to real people with real families and real relatives. And it has to stop. It's really, really bad. Is the MNC behind that? I believe so. It's a personal opinion, but after the MOU they signed with the Mi'kmaq to turn the Mi'kmaq against the Acadian Métis and all of the other stuff since then, yeah.
I just got a message from someone who actually is of Mi'kmaq, and supposedly he's supposed to be a chief. So, but I'm not sure if he was the chief. I'm not sure if it was real or fake, but he was telling me that I could actually claim $80,000 and get myself $80,000 from the government.
Oh yeah, where? We'll do the same.
Yeah, apparently it's supposed to be from the USA.
Oh,
yeah, and I said I've never known any American actually want to give a Canadian $80,000.
Nope, me neither.
So he says, "Well, here's a website. Here, try this." I'm like, why would an 80-plus-year-old elder tell me, "Here's how you can make money"?
I don't know. It's and you know what? I think you just hit right on the nail when you mentioned money. I think a lot of this has to do with money, unfortunately.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I know it is.
Yeah.
And it hurts because basically, I'll explain something to our listeners. I have tried for more than 20 years with my best friend Dale Haggerty, and I mean a lot of good people out there in the community. Keith Henry, myself, Dale Haggerty. We worked so hard with our Métis Museum, and we share our history and our museum with the public everywhere, and we like to share that history with not just the Métis kids, but also non-Indigenous people, because they need to know who the Métis are, not just real, but who the Métis are, and our history, what we do, and what we're like. And so there's so many stories and storytellers and a lot of elders that actually shared that history. And from our side, whether it's from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, or in British Columbia here, and I'm still learning more about other people that are from Ontario telling their stories, and it's always good because I work with the kids, and I work with about 500-600 kids once a year for 3 days, and I tell them stories, and they love it. They like being there and be part of it. Especially when you're doing the International Children's Festival, that the kids like to find out what's going on, and they love it. And the thing is that we try so hard to teach history, but when we're asking for a donation to help keep a museum going, or some people won't give you that money, but yet they still want you there, right? So we go out of our own way because we care. We want to be out there.
Yep.
We put our own money into it, and to me that's not just my investment; it's investment for the community. So I've done so many things myself for our community. I don't expect nothing back, because I've had people say to me before, "What does he want? What does he want?"
We get asked the same thing, and that's why I get so upset when people were throwing, they're in there for the money and she's in for the money, and they don't realize we all work for free, and we give thousands of hours and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of our time. And time, somebody told me this week that the gift of your time is one thing that you never get back. And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't expect anything back, but we're not doing that for ourselves at our age. Like, we're 60, and it's not for us. We're not going to be the ones benefiting about that or from that. But our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, we hope that they'll benefit. Bryce has a plan that he wants to do with a cabin up where he's from, and I love that idea, and I'd love to bring children there and teach them ways. Yeah.
Talking about time and money, Carol, the Labrador Inuit Association in Labrador, it took them 30 years to get their land claim through, and by the time it got through, there wasn't, I think, maybe only one living survivor that got to see that day.
Yeah,
wow.
And that's I tell people we're not going to go for land claims, and it belongs to the First Nations as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But we are going to buy land, however. And
I
don't mean just a joke there, buy it one bag at a time at Canadian Tire, but we do want to buy land where we can build things for our people.
The MNC actually put a map out there and saying these are all the territories that they actually had settled. But they made it look, the way they settled it, or the way they made it look as if it was a territory, and a lot of the First Nations got really upset about it.
Absolutely.
Well, rightfully so.
Yeah, they did, because they're going like, what gives you the right to say this is your territory? It never was. They offered us a place to stay, because if you look at Poundmaker, and he said, well, here's some land here, you can use this, and that's exactly where Riel and all the families migrated. Now, and here's what most people may not know: the Métis never really migrated to either Alberta or Saskatchewan automatically. Their quest was to go to British Columbia. Their quest was to go to Barkerville for the gold.
Yep.
They had well over 2,500 wagons, Red River carts, and they weren't called Métis back then, folks. They were called overlanders. And these are people that traveling across the land to get their opportunity to look for the gold. And only no more than 200 showed up to Barkerville. The rest of them either settled or didn't make it. I mean, you think about it. They didn't go out just to settle. They were looking for, possibly some were, but they all believed when they all go together as a group, and they went together as a group. Nobody had money. Most of them did not. They just had their goods, what they could carry. And they made it across the land because they wanted to make something for themselves. And that was because they were tired of being called the invisible people. They were not accepted by the white society, and sometimes they were not accepted by the First Nations, because a lot of the women that had kids of their own, the husbands they once had that were actually European, went back to their own country, never returned, abandoned those kids and that woman. And so the parents, the grandparents or the fathers of the First Nations would not accept their daughters back, because to them was a bad thing, was not accepted. They thought, okay, well, she did something wrong, so we can't speak to her anymore. Meantime, she's on her own. She can't go back to her own original family. So they have to find some means and ways of survival. So they meet a new person in their life who actually is frontiering the land. They take the chance and they travel. And that's exactly how originally what Metis were all about. We were nomads. We were overlanders. We traveled. We tried to find settlements. That's what it really was about. It wasn't about $1 billion.
Exactly.
Gold, maybe, but...
Well, it was the same for the Acadians after the displacement or the expulsion. They had to go elsewhere, so they went to Quebec and they were in other places, and the Métis are mobile.
They were.
The government has to recognize that, and people have to recognize that we're not after the billions of dollars. Some are, but not all of us. And for us, the land is more important than anything else, and if we have to buy it, then we'll buy it. There's lots of land in Canada.
Now,
lots of crown land, I hear.
Yes.
Well, there's actually a few years back, a good lady friend of mine actually out here in Chilliwack region. There's a big tall mountain in Chilliwack, and her and her husband raised organic turkeys. And they had the flu virus going around with the birds, the bird flu. And her birds never got touched because they were on the mountain. But the government wanted to come in and kill all her turkeys. Even though they're indoors, they wanted to slaughter all of her turkeys that were flu-free, but she had a gun at the end of the road because she said, you cannot cross this road because it's Crown land. And the RCMP couldn't do a thing about it. And neither one turkey ever died except it had a head chopped off.
Yeah, we did that one year, and not for me.
I can make a few comments on that one, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut this one.
We'd love to hear that comment.
Oh, it's gone already. It flew out of my head.
Yeah, see, it's a turkey joke.
Yeah. And it's not even Thanksgiving.
No. We give thanks that we're here.
Yes, absolutely. I give thanks to be here with you and on First Nation and British Columbia territory, which I think is always important to acknowledge the Stolo people. And I've been all across this country. I've worked in Alberta. I've worked in British Columbia. I've worked in Newfoundland, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. And I have to say it, and I know people back home not going to like me, but there's a reason why they call it beautiful British Columbia.
No snow, hardly, folks. This is BC. This is like, and there are actually a lot of people from England move here because it reminds them of England. You see, in England, it takes you 3 days to go from one end of the island to the other driving. Here in Canada, it takes you more than a month to go drive from one end of Canada to the other. Yeah. So you really want to move here because you're not going to sink.
There's people from Ireland here too.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant I frequent. What's it called? Deacon's Corner. A couple of the servers are Irish. They seem to like it here too for some reason.
A lot of Australians go to Whistler.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they like the mountains.
Yeah.
Like the ski.
It is a beautiful country. Yeah. When you go there in December, at the end of December, and there's green grass everywhere, and you're under 2 feet of snow at home, man, you don't want to come back.
Even in a storm, right, Carol?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was something else.
Yeah, good memories.
I grew up in deep snow because I was a kid. In Manitoba, we get our snowbanks are as high as almost telephone poles. I mean, that's how big our snow was. And when I come to BC, going like, this is California, like a Canadian California, And you can tell when anybody's from British Columbia, folks, they actually wear a parka, shorts, and sandals.
It's true. And then they call us and they say, they call us in February or early March when we're freezing here, and they say, I'm sitting in my hot tub and it's about 17 degrees, the sun is shining.
Yeah,
we just want to jump out the window.
Yeah, we got flowers growing right now, and Jermaine in our chat room saying, there's no snow, eh? And she goes, still snowing here and 20 centimeters for next Monday.
Yes, it in Cape Breton, they're expecting, I think it's 170 miles, 170 kilometers wind or something like that tonight.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to our friend Randy, who's fixing all the wires when they go down.
Yeah, especially those the frozen ice wires. Those can be really dangerous.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're very fortunate to live in this country, no matter where we're from, East Coast, West Coast, North, South. We're very fortunate to live in this country, Canada, with our freedoms that we have. Yeah, it's a good thing.
So, what would be your plan now here in now that you moved here to Mission? What would you want to do?
I'm still working. I'm a stonemason. I did a chimney yesterday. I got another chimney to do next week. I'm still working as a construction worker, and I'll probably be doing that till I die. I'm building a boat. I keep myself busy.
With stone?
No. Cement. No, it's...
That's a stone boat.
It's a stone boat, yeah. I'm enjoying. I have a beautiful wife, Denise, here. We got married last October, and I'm very happy. I found my happy place. I have Heather, my daughter, lives in Ottawa, and 2 grandchildren just celebrated their birthday. I have a son in Newfoundland with his mom there. So I have family all across the country. I have a brother up in Hudson's Hope. So I just have people all across this country, and I have a lot of Métis brothers and sisters that I know have family elsewhere, and it's very important that we join together and work together and bring about the change that's needed to make a better future for our youth, for their education, for their health, help our seniors. There's so many seniors that could use help on fixed incomes and stuff like that. So I think working together with Carol and our new board of directors and all the new treaty partners, I think we're going to make a big change.
That's good. My wife had celebrated her birthday yesterday, so I took her out to a restaurant, and I forgot the name of the restaurant. Oh, it's gonna kill me. I told the guys to give him a big shout out.
Oh, you're in trouble
forgot.
now.
Was that that place in Surrey?
Yeah, it was a place
Fresno
in
in?
Fresno. Yeah, there you go. See, even he's been following me. I got to follow her. Yeah, it was Fresco's. Fresco's in Surrey. Big shout out, guys. Thank you so much. Your food is absolutely excellent. Folks, I'll tell you this. When you order a fish and chips, you get the fish is from one end of the plate to the other. You get 3 of them with chips. There's more fish than with chips on the plate.
So the mushroom burger, it was huge.
Yeah, Marina actually had her double mushroom burger, and holy crow, she didn't eat it all. She got home, but she took it home after and ate. She'll be eating the second part of it today. That's why people like Fresco so much, because they always serve you big meals when they serve you well. Yeah, and so it's and here's the thing about my wife. She's Cree and Croatian. So we call her Creation.
Happy birthday, Marina.
Yeah. So she had fun. I know that because we just talked. We pictures of her all over the Facebook. We had fun. And she said she had the best time of her life. But it's fun to have. I mean, here's the thing too, because here's a woman who's Cree and Croatian, and would she be accepted in the Métis community, as far as a registry? Oops, because she's not Red River.
Wow, that's good.
You think that part.
I like that part. The Red River, is it really red?
Blue River, there's Green River, but not Red River.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think they call it Red River because of the fight and the blood.
Maybe.
Real, that sort of thing. But, there's so many things happening in our Métis community, and I think that, we've tried. I do my best, and Bryce himself has done as much as he can. Now, your plans now, Carol, what is it you see that you want to do for the Métis Nation of Canada now to really excel it to the next step?
Well, the first thing we're going to have to do, as you all know, I had written the Prime Minister Trudeau, and I received a response to my letter, which surprised me because usually we don't get any response. This time I received one, and he said, he didn't say it, his assistant said that unfortunately his schedule could not accommodate to meet us, and they were sorry they couldn't accommodate. Not, maybe we could arrange something at a later date or not. However, instead they said we referred your letter to Minister Bennett, which I found pretty funny because I wrote to him about Minister Bennett refusing to meet any groups outside of the MNC, and lately one, Schmidt-Cap to sign a political accord. Whatever that is or that means, it's not the MOUs that she signs with the MNC. But in the letter, we made it clear that we wanted a meeting, and if not, we'd have no choice but to take another avenue and go to the Human Rights Commission and Tribunal, and that's what we're going to do. We're forming a team right now, and we're to prepare a complaint. As people know, we don't have the hundreds of thousands and the millions of dollars that the MNC has, but we can do this. The Métis are very resourceful, and we're going to work together. We have lawyers and different people who said they would help us do this, and we're going to present it to the Human Rights Commission. And as far as I'm concerned, when Minister Bennett, when she decides to deal with a group that represents only 16% of Canada's Métis population, I see that as being negligent in her duty. And I'm probably going to get slapped on my fingers for saying this on air, but that's what it is. And there are such things as partisanship and preferential treatment. It's unacceptable for the government, and the government is supposed to be neutral and respect all Métis people. That's her mandate. And recognizing the Métis, it should not come at the cost of the implementation of using Pauli to implement a two-tier system where you'll have right-bearers Métis and non-right-bearers Métis. That's completely unacceptable. So that's one of the big thing we want to do for our people, because I don't care what people say. A Métis is a Métis, and you can't be a little bit Métis or a lot Métis, just like you can't be a little bit pregnant or a lot pregnant. You are your, right?
Yeah, well, you can be a little man or a big man.
Well, exactly, and that whole thing of little M and big M, I can, if I was not very polite, I'd tell them what to do with that. But we have to stop that. All Métis are equal. We all have rights, and the government needs to recognize that. They don't want to do it, then we'll go to the Human Rights Commission. We'll go all the way to the UN if we have to. But we're not going to take it anymore. And it's the same thing with the bullying and the harassment that has been going on, the defamation, call it libel, based on, stuff that happened a couple of years back with a couple of people, and we exchanged heated arguments and on email, and that they're taking that kind of evidence. And when you go online, you were asking me about online a while ago, and I have a real big beef with people using the internet to destroy other people and honest people's reputation. And when it comes insult after insult and video after video and a name calling and some serious accusations, when people tell me that I'm a fraud and they tell of our people that we are corrupt and all of that stuff, those are serious accusations.
Yeah.
We're public figures. I'm an author. They mocked my work. They caused harm. And then we think of our grandchildren who are teenagers, not just starting, but surfing the net, and they come across videos like that call their grandmother and their grandfathers and their uncles and aunts, all of those names. It's very upsetting for them and their friends. And it's going to stop. And I put a video out last week, and we said to cease and desist, and it's not happening. And this is going to be the route we're going to take for every time that somebody does this. We're going to court. That's today. We are in a civilized world, and the civilized world is a court case, and that's what we'll do.
Well, I hope it works well for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we're going to do, and I've already lined up a few people, and interestingly enough, we spoke with one lady who is the mayor of a community, and she sustained a huge amount of bullying because she's black. And we're going to form a team to prepare a bill to introduce in the House of Commons to address the online adult bullying. I want that bill to create a legal instrument to charge and prosecute cyberbullies. Because right now, according to the RCMP we're working with right now, hence my meeting tonight, legally it's not criminal, but it's borderline. But on the civil side, it is chargeable in the court of law.
Well, we gotta let you go. My dear. I thank Bryce Paquette.
I got to do a little jigging right now. Excuse me, folks. I got to step outside.
Anyways, take care, everybody, and appreciate you for all joining us. And we'll be back next week with more Métis Matters Radio. Take care, guys.
Bye.